watching you. God knows what you're doing. But not this idea of God as some kind of authoritarian disciplinarian. That God loves you all the time, sees everything, knows everything. You want to be careful not to try to bring in God as a third parent who's the strict one. Not to give children this sense of, and God is really angry at you. Because all that does is give them more complexes. Let them know that God is the one who actually loves them regardless. We as parents should try to live up to the example that God sets, which is to love our children regardless, unconditionally. So don't use God, like wait till God finds out or God's going to be very angry at you. Because then kids just develop this sense of fear of God. And that isn't what we want. God isn't something to be feared. God is something to be realized and experienced and united with. So help them understand God is always with you. All the time, wherever you are. You can just close your eyes or even with your eyes open and talk to God. God can hear you. God is the one who created the universe. God is the one who made everything, all these beautiful flowers, all the animals, all the trees. God is the one who makes them. But what's so beautiful is that whenever we make anything, and when your kids go to school and they go to art class and they do a painting, and on the bottom of the painting they write their name. Done by me. But God never writes his name. You never see made by God. So help your kids understand that. It's a beautiful way, You make a painting and you sign your name. But God has made everything. And you don't see God writing his name anywhere. Because God has made everything just for us. And so you can help them, number one, feel very comfortable and safe and nourished and nurtured, that God is always there taking care. But you can also help them take inspiration and lessons from God. The way that God just creates and creates for us. And how can we be instruments, tools, vessels, vehicles, channels in God's hands? So, and based on whatever your religion is, there's children's books. Do you want to introduce your children to God is Krishna? God is Ram. It doesn't matter. Whatever way the family worships, it's a fine way to introduce your children to God. But also help them understand that God is not limited only to this picture in this book of Krishna, or this picture in this book of Ganesha or Hanumanji. That yes, this is God, and this tree is God, and the flowers are God, and everyone and everything you see is God, and you are God. They're not going to understand it all at the beginning, and that's okay. But just keep giving it to them. And slowly, slowly, as they grow, it'll trickle down and they'll really, really develop a very close connection with God. And then, of course, as they grow, and as they struggle, as they have problems, as everyone does in school, whether it's classes or subjects or teachers or friends or boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever it may be, just always encourage them. Have you talked to God about this? Have you told God? Go and sit with God. Don't worry, sweetheart. Just spend some time talking to God. And just make that a really regular thing that you do. Bring meditation into your home. Bring prayer into your home. Make talking to God a regular part of what you, the parents, do. So they'll grow up knowing, oh yeah, we talk to God. God is always with me. And it'll be the best gift you can give them. Other questions? Any question that anyone here has? Yes, Yavia.
Hello. I grew up in a country with a very strong welfare state.
Very strong?
Welfare and secular country, Sweden. And the concept of seva and charity does not really exist there. It's more that we pay very high taxes, the government takes care of people. So we kind of outsource our seva. And yeah, when I've been traveling in India and reading the books and listening to the gurus and spiritual people, seva always comes up, and it resonates with me a lot. And I feel like, yeah, it's not only to help others, it's also to help me. So when I go back, I want to do seva. So do you have any practical tips? Like what types of seva, like how many hours a week, or yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So seva is not always exclusively for those who are poor and needy. In a country like India, that's how it tends to manifest because there are so many who are poor and needy. You want to do seva? Well, let's do seva for kids. Let's do seva for sick people. Let's do seva in schools and the hospitals and environmental programs and these things that are needed so deeply. But in a country like Sweden, where, as you say, you don't have that problem. You've got a situation in which people make good incomes. Therefore, they have the ability out of that good income to pay very high taxes. The government takes the money that comes in as taxes and uses it, actually, for the benefit of people. That doesn't mean that people aren't in need. It just means they're not in need in that particular way. I would imagine that there still are, for example, children in hospitals suffering from cancer or other severe terminal illnesses who could use volunteers to play with them or read to them. There must be blind people in centers where they're being taken care of and fed, but who could use volunteers to come and read to them. There must be people who are, even in the midst of not external reasons necessarily in terms of hunger or housing or medical care, but in terms of other internal issues, who are suffering, who are depressed, who are sad, who need companionship, who need a friend, who need a shoulder to cry on. And so once your eyes are really open to it and your heart is open, I think you'll find a lot of opportunities. The other thing that the world of internet has given us is all sorts of opportunities to do things online. there are a lot of organizations that need things online. I mean, I know, for example, for us, we have people in Seva all over the world doing Seva from different parts of the world. If you email me and you say, God, I'd love you to come to this event that we're doing, and would you come and give a talk? You're going to get an email back from a beautiful young woman sitting in Chicago who does this seva for me of managing my schedule and my calendar and, that type of correspondence. So there's a lot of seva possibilities that don't necessarily require you to be physically on site. So also, keep your mind open to organizations you could work with in India, in other parts of the world, who may have great use for a skill that you have. And if they don't have use of a skill that you have, everybody can use funds. So you could always do seva by fundraising amongst people who don't have to worry about money. You could fundraise for one organization. You could fundraise for many organizations. You could, do a whole bunch of things like that. And you could keep taking trips to places where people are in need and giving your time on the ground to help in whatever way, in whatever way your travel schedule, vacation schedule, disposable income, however that works. You could actually travel, again, to India, to other parts of the world, and sort of make your vacations seva holidays. I know a lot of people whose vacations are based in that, whether they're doctors or nurses or, different types of people, building construction, people who do that kind of work, who spend every vacation they have as doctors, nurses, in different poor areas, or they go and they use their skills of building to build homes through Habitat for Humanity or other organizations like that are building homes in poor areas. So you could also do it like that. But you mentioned something really important, which is seva is just as much for us as it is for the person we're helping. Because when we're doing seva, really something that's selfless, that we're not thinking, what am I going to get from it? It actually purifies our mind. And it may be sometimes things quite literally like serving food, raising money, something that's really direct and automatic and obvious. And sometimes it may be designing a website, stuffing envelopes, doing correspondence, doing a database program, doing, whatever it may be, to help people who on the ground are doing the work. There's so much. We've got 4 or 5 different charitable organizations that coexist here. And the amount of behind the scenes work, you see in the front, here's a school, and here are teachers, and here are administrators, and here we get to go and feed lunch to the school children. But all of the behind the scenes work that makes that possible, so much of it could be done from anywhere in the world. So now that your heart is open, I think you're going to find so many opportunities to be in seva. And some of it may be direct like that. Some of it may be simply, every single person you see who looks like they need a smile, you're going to be the one to give them one. That you're just going to move through the world bringing smiles to people's faces. Or you're just randomly going to, pay for the groceries of the mother in line behind you at the grocery store. Just Not because she needs it, not because the government isn't taking care of her, but just because. Just to bring a smile to her face. Just to remind her that you're all in this together. Suddenly, every move in your life will become an opportunity to do seva. Beautiful. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. He's just bringing you a microphone so everyone can hear. It's on.
How can we develop ourselves and be more attractive day by day? Like, I've seen you last 2 days, and like by seeing your smile, and like we are the big fan of yours. Like, so how can we be more attractive and we can develop ourselves more and more?
So, real attractiveness, that which actually holds that which you attract. Because superficial levels of just good looks or flashy cars or flashy clothes or, it may attract, but it doesn't hold. Real attraction, you want it to be something that actually holds. And of course the question then becomes, and what are we trying to attract? Who are we trying to attract? Do you want to attract people who only are interested in what you look like and how many diamonds you're wearing? Of course not. Because what are you going to do with people like that? Right? Are those the people you really want to hang out with? What you want is to attract people who are deep, who are connected to God. And what attracts the divine in people is a love for the divine in ourselves. Look at the Ramayana. Yesterday we celebrated Ram Navami, the birthday of Ram. So the Ramayana gives us actually a very perfect lesson on attractiveness. We have Shorpanaka, right? The demon king Ravan's demoness sister. So without going into the whole story, that's all you need to know. Sister demoness of demon king. She goes to Bhagwan Ram, right? To try to attract him, distract him, get him, snatch him. He has no interest. Zero. But now because she's a demoness with all the powers of demonousness, she's able to make herself look like the most beautiful woman in the world. So she goes to him bedecked as literally the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman in the world. The most attractive woman. But Bhagwan Ram, of course, can see through it. He's divine. He has that divine sight. He wants none of it. None of it. He doesn't even let her near him. And then you have Shabri, a poor, uneducated, unattractive by every cultural objective standard that we have of beauty. But she is so devoted to Lord Ram, and her guru told her, he will come one day, he will come one day. And she has such faith in her guru that she really believes God is going to come, God is going to come. And so what does she do every day? Well, she sweeps her floor. So that when God arrives, the floor is clean. But not just her floor. The ground of every possible pathway leading up to her house, because she doesn't know which pathway he's going to come from. So she sweeps them all. And he comes. So that's what we want. That's the attractiveness you want. Something that is so attractive that God shows up at your door. That you're such a magnet of divine attractiveness that literally God knocks on your door. And so, what does she have? No money, no education, no jewelry, no fine clothes, nothing but her devotion, her love for God. Shorpnaka had everything, all of it. She got sent away with her nose cut off. So that's the answer. You want to be attractive. Well, why not go the full way? I mean, attract God. Right? That to me would be the ultimate height of attractiveness. That God shows up at your door. So, what's the way? Devotion. Love of God. And you know what's interesting is it's not just about attracting God. People who are in love with anyone, are much nicer people. Right? Think about like when your friends fall in love. How they become. Suddenly they're not just happier, but they're nicer. Suddenly they're buying you dinner, giving you gifts, doing your work for you because they're in love. And so the world is very beautiful and they just want to share. So, love. But loving God, of course, is going to bring the greatest light and shine to you. And when you love God, you feel God inside of you. And when you feel God inside of you, then others feel God inside of you. Not that they say, oh, God is inside of you. But in your presence, they feel God inside themselves. When you are with someone who's devoted, who's connected to the divine, it's not just a matter of, oh, I want to be with you because you're so connected to God. It's when we are with that person, we feel connected to God. Through that person. They become this channel for us to be connected. So start to love God. Find that love of God in your heart. Start to really develop that. Develop your connection with the divine. And two things will happen. Number one, you'll stop caring who you attract. But number two, you'll actually start attracting more. Because that's what people want, is to be near to that. And in terms of developing yourself, I think of it much more as a peeling back of that which is not true self. Think about what a sculptor does. There was an interview I was reading, I can't remember now where it was from, but it was an interview with one of those specialized sculptors who do the deities in mandirs, who are actually the ones who sculpt out of the rock Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Ram, Shankar Bhagwan. And it was an interview with one of these sculptors. And the interviewer was asking the artist, how do you do it? How do you look at a piece of rock and suddenly turn a piece of rock into Krishna or into Shivji? And the sculptor said something very beautiful. The sculptor said, I don't turn the rock into Krishna. I simply listen as Krishna tells me what part of the rock to remove. Krishna was there. But most people couldn't see him because it looked just like a slab of rock. I simply listen as Krishna tells me what to remove so people can see him. And I actually think about self-development in that way. That it's not so much about turning ourselves into something new, but it's about listening and removing that from us, which blocks us from living as the true divine self. So we're peeling away that which is not self, like the sculptor peels away that which is not Krishna. All he's doing is removing that which is not Krishna from the rock. And suddenly there you've got Krishna. Not because he created it, but because he removed that which was not Krishna. And as you think about personal development, think about it like that. Not, I have to become something new. But rather, I need to remove that which is not my divine self. And then that becomes your work. Letting go of anger, jealousy, grudges, ego, illusions, temptations, all of these things that keep us stuck. We start to remove them, and that divine within us emerges. Beautiful. Yes.
So, how would you navigate difficult life decisions which necessarily would involve some degree of sacrifice?
Which necessarily would involve?
Some degree of sacrifice.
Every minute we're navigating life decisions, and they always involve sacrifice. Sometimes it's much bigger and sometimes it's much smaller. You go to a restaurant, you order a meal. Well, you're sacrificing that which you're not eating. So if I go to a restaurant and I decide I'm going to eat pasta, I have sacrificed eating pizza or eating Chinese food because I've chosen pasta. If I decide to live in Rishikesh, I sacrifice living in London or Paris or New York or LA or any other city in the world. Not just where I was previously living, but any other possibility of where I might be living. You marry one person. You sacrifice being married to anyone else. You choose one job. You sacrifice any other job. So it's important to realize that decisions by their nature involve some degree of sacrifice, minor or major. And sadly, there's no way in advance to know which decision you're going to be happy with. But the way to navigate them is with wisdom and clarity. Number one, of course, what are my values and ethics? What matters to me? So when I go to a restaurant to make a decision what to eat, well, as a very strict vegetarian, all of the non-vegetarian items are obviously off the possibility. As someone committed to organic agriculture. I'm going to be inclined to find, is there something that is organic? Or is there a restaurant that cooks organic? So the first and easiest way is simply to figure out what's in alignment with my values and my ethics. What decision feels most in alignment with me? Because what we know is when we think one thing and act another way, we're always unhappy. In psychology, they call it cognitive dissonance. And it means basically that in order for us to live peacefully, I need my actions to line up with my thoughts. So there's two ways of that happening. Either I act according to what I believe. I think eating meat is wrong, therefore I eat vegetarian. Or I change my beliefs to match my actions. And you see this a lot. People who, for example, decide they're going to quit smoking. And then they don't quit smoking. And in the beginning, when they first were going to quit smoking, they say, I've got to quit smoking. It's horrible for me. It's going to kill me. It's horrible for my kids. It's horrible for everybody around me. I've got to quit. But then when they don't quit, you hear them saying things like, it's not so bad. That's all just the propaganda. You know, my friend's grandmother smoked 2 packs a day and she lived till she was 90. And we change our thoughts then to match the actions. Because it is that important to our inner peace for our actions to match our thoughts. So if you want to make sure that you don't end up later on compromising your values and your ethics and what you believe, make sure that you're acting in accordance with them. Otherwise, your values are going to change. Otherwise, you will start changing what you believe to match your actions. You find yourself attracted to some man who's not your husband. In the beginning, you say, got to get a different job, got to stop seeing this guy because these feelings are not right. But you don't get a different job. You don't stop seeing him. Eventually, you find yourself having an affair with him. And then suddenly your mind says, well, anyway, my husband never pays any attention to me. I deserved some happiness. Suddenly, the thoughts change to make you feel okay about the action. So whatever decision you're going to make, the first level of discrimination has to be, which action is most in alignment with my core values, ethics, beliefs, principles? Then you go deeper and you say, which decision is the one in which I am going to have the experiences and learn the lessons that I am meant to have in this karmic journey, so that I get closer to God, to my true self, farther and farther from illusion, farther and farther from ego, farther and farther from drama and roles and story, closer and closer to truth. And then that should help you eliminate some options. And then you go another layer and you say, which option enables me to bring forth the love in my heart, the truth of who I am, in the best way? And by that time, hopefully you should find yourself having already made your decision. But if not, if you still find yourself with 2 choices, consider yourself in a win-win situation. And sometimes there are those situations. Sometimes there are situations where really both options are quite good. You've got 2 great job offers. You've got 2 wonderful universities to choose from. You've got 2 or more beautiful possibilities of cities you can live in, lives you can create for yourself. Bow to the divine in gratitude for the abundance you've been gifted with. And then just choose one. Don't drive yourself crazy. Choose one. And then commit to making the very best of that situation. Because the last thing you want to be is like a ball in a pinball machine. You know, where it just kind of goes bouncing against the walls until the quarter runs out. So you want to, once you've made that decision clearly, carefully, stay there. You don't have to stay forever, necessarily, if you know, oh my God, that was a bad decision. But give it some time. Give it some time, because remember, you did go through all of this process that made you think it would be a good decision. So see what you can do to make it a good situation. Give it time. But recognize that you've, in a case like that, just been very blessed to have more than one beautiful possibility. And you know, in situations like that, there isn't necessarily one right answer. A lot of us think there's only one right answer for me. And there just isn't. As long as your mind and your heart and your attention and intention are for your own deepening, your own growth, your own expansion, and to use your life as a way to bring joy and love and smiles and awareness to others in whatever way you have skills to do so. There's probably a lot of equally beautiful options. So just choose one and then create the very best life for yourself and those around you possibly can. Beautiful. Yeah, last.
It's been beautiful being in this presence. My question was, if you can share a bit on renunciation and throw some light especially on when do you know it's time to renounce, and how to live a renounced life with a like-minded partner who's also on a spiritual journey, say husband and wife.
Great. So renunciation in a marriage. Normally when we think of renunciation, we think of monastic renunciation, what we call sannyas in the Hindu tradition. But it's certainly possible to live that life as the final stage of a householder life. In fact, the way that the Indian spiritual tradition and culture and teachings is set up is that is how our life goes. First phase of our life is our brahmacharya phase. We are a student, we're learning. Second phase is grihastha ashram phase. We are a husband or a wife, a mother, a father. We have a job, we make money, we provide for the family. Then we shift into what's called vanprastha ashram, where we start to move away from things of the senses, from material possessions and pleasures and whatnot. And then ultimately we move into the sannyas phase, that renunciation. Because sannyas and renunciation, it's not just a renunciation of sex. Yes, it includes celibacy, but it's much bigger than celibacy. The reason for celibacy is not that sex is bad. The reason for celibacy is that it enables us to shift all of the attention, focus, energy of the mind and actually energy of the body into our spiritual practices, because sex takes a lot of energy, not just physically in the body, but thinking about it. If you're a sexually active person, most people spend a lot of time thinking about sex. It's very natural. We meet someone, we talk to them, the mind is automatically, even unconsciously, sort of connecting on that level. When we take vows of celibacy, it frees up all of the mind. Because ki wo hone wali nahi hai, it's just, I'm not going there. And so the mind stops thinking about it. And of course, you preserve that ojas of the body as well. That sacred energy of the body. But renunciation is more than just of sex. It's a whole renunciation of the attachment to this relationship as that thing from which I'm going to attain the happiness that I'm looking for. So it's not just you are no longer my sex object, but it's also I'm no longer attached to the choices you make, the decisions you make, the way you speak, the way you act, that I'm now renouncing my expectation that you are finally going to shape up and become the person I've always wanted you to be. We renounce that. And not only of the spouse, but of family members, children, in-laws, friends. That suddenly that attachment that most of us have to the world going according to the way we want it to go, it's a renunciation of that. It's a renunciation of the identity. So let's say, for example, you were a high-level business person and you had 500 employees and you had a big mansion and lots of cars and you were the buddy admi of the community. Well, if you shift into a lifestyle of renunciation, it's going to mean a smaller home. Getting rid of really what you don't need, what's not necessary. Getting rid of extra things. But it's also going to include getting rid of that self-identity of, I am the buddy admi, I'm the businessman, don't you know who I am-ness. It's a renunciation of that. And it's a very beautiful phase of life. It's certainly, as I said, what our culture says, at least as the final stage of your life, is where you should go. One very beautiful aspect is you don't have to renounce love. Love is very beautiful. As you renounce the physical aspect of it, what you will find is that the actual love grows deeper, because it becomes a love of essence, love of spirit, love of soul, love of consciousness, rather than a love that's directed at the physical body. So it's a beautiful step to take. And take it slowly. You've got a lifetime of a pattern, a habit of how you are. It's something that you want to, make sure that your children know. And of course, again, it doesn't have to mean you no longer love your children. It just means you're not calling every day saying, where were you? I've been trying you all day long. Where have you been? Why do you get home so late? You work too hard. Have you had lunch? Have you fed the kids breakfast? That you're letting go of that attachment. The love is still there, but the attachment dissipates. And that's what the real renunciation is. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world through the gift of technology. And I look so forward to being together with you all tomorrow. And so much love to you.